Does smart make you happy? Because, the smart people get all the advantages. Or would stupid, not so smart people actually do better because they have fewer worries and less concerns and, they can just take life as it is? What's the truth about intellect and happiness? Well, stay tuned. I've got a few insights in that complex question and maybe a few suggestions about how to take advantage of the science of happiness and the connection to intellect. As a coach, public speaker, and best-selling author, I teach topics just like this one all around the world. So stay tuned and I'll give you practical tools that you can use to make both yourself and those around you both happier and more successful. So fundamentally, what we're going to answer this week is, does one's intelligence determine one's happiness? So the premise might be that the smarter you are, or maybe the more troubled you are by all of life's concerns, or conversely, maybe the smarter you are, the more tools you have, the cognitive processing power you have to capably navigate the world. Well, which is true? Scientists have looked at this, and I think there's now an emerging consensus that a high IQ is positively correlated with a happier life, with greater well-being. And it might be easy to conclude that, happy people are going to have tools, the emotional and cognitive tools to navigate life well, and therefore happiness was going to come to smarter people more readily. But it isn't quite that simple. It turns out that the low IQ that we see associated with lower levels of happiness is also highly associated with poor financial attainment, less educational attainment, and those things are predictive of well-being. And they're predictive of well-being because standard of living is highly associated with greater well-being up to a point. So I hope this is making sense so far. We've studied in this video channel before the idea that you can buy happiness up to a point. That once we confidently meet our basic needs and have confidence that we can go beyond our basic needs of today, but tomorrow and the next year we're going to meet our basic needs, then people tend to get somewhere close to the maximum level of happiness. The study's outdated now, but it's around $75,000 per household. And beyond that, people don't get any happier. But below that, and especially far below that, people are income insecure. They may be food insecure, medicine insecure, clothing, housing, all those things that cause a constant level of stress. And so at low levels of income, we typically see low levels of happiness. And there are lots of cool exceptions. Think of monks or other people who've taken vows of poverty or just choose a really minimalist lifestyle and can be very happy indeed. So this isn't science that's rock hard, but there's a clear association with decent levels of income and greater levels of happiness. But huge incomes don't make us happier than that $75,000. And adjust for inflation, call it $85,000, $90,000, something like that. That tends to be the sweet spot. So when we see that lower intellect people tend not to have as great educational attainment and therefore don't have the same levels of financial success as typically smarter people do, that's the challenge. It's not that the intellect is causation for low happiness. It's that the lack of finances and the tools to get greater finances are harder for people who are less smart to achieve. But, this is a big but, even more predictive of IQ and happiness is EQ and happiness. That is emotional intelligence. And they're measured quite differently. Emotional intelligence is about the ability to read other people's emotions, to understand and manage our own emotions, to maintain emotional regulation so that we can be disciplined and achieve the goals that are important to us and not have outbursts of anger and, get in trouble with the law and those kinds of extreme things too. But EQ is highly associated with well-being and a better predictor of happiness than is IQ. Now it gets a little bit more complex again. EQ and IQ are also relatively well associated because when a person has a high level of emotional intelligence, they're using a lot of the same parts of the brain and cognitive capacity that people with high IQ also use. Cognitive processing, access to memory, those kinds of things are all important. And so EQ and IQ often come together. So what do we take away from this? One, that need to have our basic biological needs met confidently is important. Pursue your own career and occupational pursuits and lifestyle so that you can be content with your physical needs being met at an adequate level. And encourage your children. And even if they aren't academically inclined, tell them to get into good trades and pursue entrepreneurial pursuits. It's predictive of higher incomes, and therefore those young people should get happier lives in the long run. The second thing I would want to point out is that we can work on EQ. I produced a video on this topic not too long ago, and maybe I will put a link in the description below so that you can go and watch that video. EQ is often associated with skill sets, and even just the skill set of recognizing the emotion on someone else's face is one EQ skill that can be taught, but there are others for sure, and it's a little bit like the other neural pathways we've talked about in past videos, that as we practice greater and greater emotional intelligence, we gain more skills in that regard. And typically women have greater EQ than men. They spend more time right out of the womb, literally as little baby infants, paying attention to the faces on other humans, and therefore they're picking up more skills and awareness of what's going on for other people, and therefore they probably also become more aware of their own emotions. First thing, get a decent income. Second thing, work on improving your EQ. And the third one is interesting, and it kind of actually relates to some videos I've done in recent weeks as well. IQ is highly associated with open-mindedness, the willingness to be challenged cognitively, to discover new things, to listen to different ideas. And what we often see is some people become rather closed-minded at a young age. And if we look at some of the troubles in the American political system right now, people with very simplistic, hard, fast beliefs about sometimes stuff that's crazy and based on conspiratorial theories and poor sources of information, but they stick to their guns no matter what, determined to not be open to more perspectives. And highly intelligent people are just as likely to sometimes become closed-minded with time. And so there's a clue for us, is that we need to keep leaning into new sources of knowledge. You know, if you're stuck on Fox News, maybe check out CNN sometime. If you think that you've got too much information coming from North American sources, well, maybe go read Al Jazeera's online news sources, or read poetry instead of nonfiction. Or if you're being used to studying everything you possibly can about horticulture, well, maybe take up cooking. This idea of sampling other different interesting ways of bringing greater open-mindedness and experimentation with new information and new ways of being is going to improve your IQ, or your capacity to exercise intelligence, and therefore probably make you happier. So there it is, the confusing soup, but some real decent science coming out of the correlations between happiness and high intelligence. Hope that was helpful. Like the video if you do like it. Share it with your friends and family, maybe with your HR director. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.